Good evening. Tonight's Committee of Adjustment hearing is being held by video conference and live streaming video on the town's live stream webpage at oakville.ca. This is a hearing to consider applications for minor variance and consents held under the authority of the Planning Act. Please keep in mind the intent of this process is to review the application that is before the committee, listen to the evidence, and then make a decision. This process is not intended to be used to resolve any concerns or disputes that may exist between the town, individuals, or organizations. If a request for a deferral is made and the committee grants such a request, the applicant or authorized agent must contact the Secretary Treasurer to schedule a new hearing date. In order to conduct an effective and efficient electronic hearing, we have adopted the following process. If you are watching the live stream of this hearing on oakville.ca, and if you wish to speak to an item on the agenda, you can call 905-815-6095. Again, that is 905-815-6095. The phone number is also posted on your screen below the live stream page at oakville.ca. Staff will be standing by to take your call. When you do call in, staff will ask for your name and item that you wish to address and your telephone number, and then further instructions will be provided to join the video conference. When the chair of the committee polls for interested parties, the Secretary Treasurer will unmute you when it is your time to speak. We do ask that you do so as soon as possible, because once the matters are taken into committee, we will not be able to take any further calls. So please call ahead for the item that you're interested in speaking to. The applicant or agent will be given the opportunity to briefly explain the committee the basis of their application, answer any questions that may arise. A maximum of 5 minutes will be provided for the presentation. You will need to state your full name and address for the record. Any submission beyond the 5 minutes will be at the discretion of the committee. All delegations will also be asked their name and address for the record, and a 5-minute period will be provided to each presentation. All remarks and questions will be directed to the chair, and any submission beyond the 5 minutes, again, will be at the discretion of the committee. The applicant or agent will then be provided with a further 5 minutes to respond to comments made by interested parties and answer any questions from the committee members. If the applicant or agent has any concerns found in staff report, particularly with the proposed conditions, this will be the opportunity to advise us. The matter will then be taken into committee for a decision, and this will mark the end of all discussion. Any person desiring a notice of the decision for an application must provide a written request, preferably through email, to the Secretary Treasurer. Please note that you must make a written request in order for you to be included on the list that is used by the Ontario Land Tribunal for the giving of any subsequent notice of appeal. Written notice of the committee's decision will be mailed no later than 10 days for minor variance and 15 days for consent application to the applicant, agent, and any other person who has filed a written request for such notice. If you do not agree with the committee's decision, you may appeal this to the Ontario Land Tribunal, and the last day to do so will be noted on the decision. If no appeal is received within the prescribed timeframe, the decision of the committee becomes final and binding, and the Secretary Treasurer will then notify the applicant and anyone who has received a copy of the decision through written correspondence. People participating in this hearing are to be courteous to and respectful of the members of the committee, town staff, and any other person participating in the electronic hearing. Tonight's electronic hearing is being video recorded and available for future viewing at oakville.ca. Thank you. We have no regrets this evening. Do I have any declarations of pecuniary interests? I see none, thank you. Are there any requests for deferral or withdrawal of applications at this time, as Secretary Treasurer?
Yes, I do have someone with their hand raised, and I just will be moving them into the meeting. I have moved Stephanie into the meeting.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Which application are you here for?
This is item number 6, application number CABA 109-2022, 1118 Lakeshore Road East.
Okay, and you're seeking a deferral?
I am.
We're assuming it's because of the comments made by staff.
Yes, we'd like additional time to work with staff.
Perfect. Any questions of Ms. Mitviva at this time or items of clarification? Okay, I see none. Ms. Murray, I see your hand up.
Yes, it's for another item, Chair. Thank you.
Okay. All those in support of a deferral for item CAV 109 of 2022 at 1118 Lakeshore Road East. Okay, your application has been deferred. You'll see the Secretary Treasurer when you're ready.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Go ahead, Ms. Murray. You had your hand up.
Yes, Madam Chair, motion to defer CAV 106 at 462 Southland Crescent for non-posting of notice. I was by today. I've sent the photos in. There were no signs posted.
That's CAV 106 of 2022 at 462 Southland Crescent, correct?
Correct, Chair.
Is the agent for this application present at this time? Mr. Van Kulen?
Yes, I'm going to move him into the meeting.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the committee.
Good evening, Mr. Van Kulen. Your property at 462 Southland Crescent at CAV 106 2022, that's CAV 106 of 2022, did not have sufficient posting. Are you aware that the signs were not up?
Yeah, we were made aware of that by town staff today. We assumed that it was blown off over the long weekend. The owners didn't notice it yesterday, and we did post it. We did provide proof and photos. But I think with the weather over the weekend, it was blown off of the tree that it was nailed to. So I do apologize for that, and I know that it was posted.
Okay. The motion to defer the application, all those in support? Okay, okay, your application has been deferred. You'll see the Secretary Treasurer when you're ready for the next available agenda time.
I understand. Thank you.
And just so you're aware, the deferral fee still applies.
Understood.
Okay. Any other items that are seeking a deferral at this time before we start the agenda?
Yes, I do see someone else with their hand raised, so I'm just going to move them into the meeting.
Good evening, members of the committee. I was here for item 6.6, which was just deferred. I just wanted to confirm that because it has been deferred, that just to give a heads up that I won't be speaking to the matter today. I'll be speaking to the matter on the date that it's moved over to. So if I may just be excused and not to expect me to speak to the item later today, of course.
Very well. Thank you, Ms. Matula, for letting us know. And you will be notified of the next time that the matter comes before the committee. So you'll have plenty of time to prepare and make yourself available.
Perfect. Thank you. I'll let my client know. Have a great evening,
Perfect.
everyone. Bye-bye.
You too. Anyone else? Again, we're at this time taking deferrals or withdrawals of applications. If you're interested in doing so, please raise your hand or call the phone number 905-815-6095 if you're not already present in the meeting.
Okay, I don't see anybody else raising their hands at this time.
Very well, then we will start with the first item on our agenda, which is CAV 104 of 2022 at 244 Dolphin Court. Again, that is CAV 104 of 2022 at 244 Dolphin Court. This is a minor variance application for a rear covered porch. Do we have Mr. Peruzin available in the meeting?
Yes, I am here. Good evening, board
evening.
members.
If you'd be kind enough to put your camera on, and staff will bring up your presentation.
Sorry, one second.
Okay, go ahead, sir.
Board, we are requesting that we are able to move forward with a minor variance with an overhead structure that is exceeding the 25% maximum limit. It is not exceeding by much. Sorry, one second here. So the maximum coverage by the zoning regulation bylaw for the city of Oakville is 25%. We are asking for it to be maximized to 27.67% for the detached dwelling, which is also greater than 7 meters in height for our client.
Is that it?
Yes.
Okay, very well. Committee members, do you have any questions or items of clarification of Mr. Peruzin at this time? Okay, I see none. Madam Secretary, has anyone called in for this application?
I do not see anybody at this time.
Very well, we'll take the matter into committee. Who would like to move motion? Go ahead, Mr. Flemington.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Having reviewed the applicant's written submission, as well as noting that the town's written staff report is in support of the application. Also having taken into account the applicant's agent's presentation this evening, noting that there were no oral or written objections to the application. From what I've reviewed, I find that it is minor in nature, does meet 4 tests of the Planning Act, and I'd like to move a motion that it be approved as applied for with the following 2 conditions. That the dwelling be built in general accordance with the submitted site plan and elevation drawings dated February 23rd, 2022. And our second condition, that the approval expires 2 years from the date of the decision if a building permit has not been issued for the proposed construction.
Very well, thank you, Mr. Flemington. Is there a discussion on this recommendation? I see none. All those in support? Okay, the application has been approved, none opposed. Thank you, Mr. Peruzin.
Thank you, board.
Application CAV 105 of 2022 at 1335 Avon Crescent. Again, it's CAV 105 of 2022 at 1335 Avon Crescent. This is a new construction of a 2-story home with a minor variance application. Good evening. Okay, Mr. Van Kulen.
Good evening again. Again, my name is Curtis Van Kulen, representing 105, and it is for a expanded garage area variance of about 9.5 square meters. This is for a tandem storage space at the back of the garage. It is not presenting as a 3-car garage to the street. And you can see just covered by the hedge in the illustration there on the right-hand side, there is a very small bump out. It is slightly a pie-shaped lot, so that allows us to do that slight bump out. And we are requesting variance for that over and above what's allowed. I welcome any of your questions. Thank you.
Very well, thank you. Are there any questions or items of clarification at this time of Mr. Van Kulen? Okay, I see none. Has anyone called in for this application, Madam Secretary Treasurer?
I do not see anyone at this time.
Okay, very well. We'll take the matter into committee. Oh, Ms. Murray, you had a question?
Yes, thank you. Through you, Madam Chair, to town staff. There is a note with regards to Conservation Halton, where they have no objection, but they requested a condition to be added. How would you like this to be handled?
Through you, Madam Chair, thank you for bringing that up. So typically prior to an building permit being issued, Conservation Halton needs to approve and provide a permit. So from our perspective, that is a requirement that's going to have to be met no matter what. So it is not necessary to attach to the application at this time. The standard conditions will be sufficient and they will still need to meet Conservation Halton's standards and requirements prior to a building permit being issued.
Thank you.
Perfect. Any further items of clarifications or questions? Okay. I'll entertain a motion at this time then. Okay, go ahead, Ms. Murray.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Having conducted my site visit and reviewed the applicant's written submission, as well as the town's written staff report, and I thank the town for that clarification for Conservation Halton. Having also taken into account the short presentation by our applicant this evening, noting that there is no one calling in and there doesn't seem to be any submissions for or against this particular variance requested, I'm going to say that I'm satisfied that the minor variance application meets all 4 tests under the Planning Act, and that I'm prepared to make a motion to approve the application for the variance subject to the following conditions, which would be that the dwelling would be built in general accordance with the submitted site plan dated December 14th, 2021, and elevation drawings dated April 22nd, 2020, and that the approval expires 2 years from the date of a decision if the building permit has not been issued for the construction. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Very well, thank you. Are there any discussions on this recommendation? Okay, I see none. All those in support? Okay, the application has been approved, none opposed.
Thank you all. Good night.
Good night. Application CAV 107 of 2022 at 3119 Victoria Street. Again, this is application CAV 107 of 2022 at 3119 Victoria Street. I have Mr. Lucas Cocomello as the agent for this application.
Hi, does everybody hear me clear?
Yes.
Perfect. Would you like me to begin?
Go ahead.
My name is Lucas Capello from Schiller Co. I am here today representing the homeowners of 3119 Victoria Street. We are here today requesting we're here today requesting forgiveness on a couple of variances due to the proposed accessory structure within the rear yard. One of which is lot coverage, and the other is maximum height for an accessory structure within the flankage yard. We have reviewed community planning's staff report and have no concerns with what has been put together. Please let me know if you have any questions.
Are there any questions of Mr. Cocomello at this time regarding the pool cabana accessory structure that is being proposed on this property? I do note there are letters of support from your neighbors at 3109 Victoria Street and 3121 Victoria Street, and 144 Strathcona Avenue and 141 Strathcona Avenue. Did anyone call in for this application or interested in speaking to this application, the Secretary Treasurer?
There is no one at this time.
Very well, then. Ms. Murray, I see your hand up. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you through you, Madam Chair. One question. I'm just wondering if there's an explanation for the height. Is there something unique about this structure for the height variance, notwithstanding the comments from town staff?
So with regards to the heights, because we're on a corner lots, typically we need to comply with a maximum height of 2.5 meters within a 3 meter setback. But because we're building within that 3 meter setback, just for consistency with the design itself, we wanted to apply for a variance for the actual 3.51 meters that we're requesting. Let me know if that answers your question.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions or items of clarification? Okay, I see none. Who would like to move a motion? Go ahead, Mr. Hardcastle.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Having undertaken my site visit, having reviewed the materials, including the staff report and the presentation from the applicant, I'm satisfied that the requested variances conform to the four tests of the Act. And I'll put forward a motion of approval subject to two conditions. Those conditions being that the accessory building be built in general accordance with the submitted site plan and elevation drawings dated February 23rd, 2022, and that the approval will expire within 2 years of the date of the decision if a building permit has not been issued. I would note that there were no presentations with respect to this matter. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Hardcastle. Is there a discussion on this recommendation? Okay, I see none. All those in favor? All those opposed? None opposed. Your application has been approved. None opposed.
Thanks.
Okay, good night.
Thanks.
If you're watching the live stream at oakville.ca and you wish to speak to an item on an agenda, please call 905-815-6095. Again, the phone number is 905-815-6095. The number is also posted at the live stream at oakville.ca. Staff will be standing by to take your call and provide you with further instructions to join the video conferencing. At this time, we will move on to our next application, CAV 108 of 2022 at 176 Woodhaven Park Drive. Again, this is CAV 108 of 2022 at 176 Woodhaven Park Drive. We do have one letter of objection from Ms. Beatis Samar and a letter of support from a Mr. Gregg at 177 Woodhaven Park. I have Mr. Jason Heather. How are you?
I'm great, thank you. Yeah, Jason Heater, HDS Dwell, on behalf of my clients at 176 Woodhaven. I would also just like to know that this afternoon there were 2 additional letters of support entered in and sent across to the town for this application. And it should be noted that two of the letters were the direct neighbor to the left-hand side and the direct rear neighbor of this property as well. So really those 2 that would be most affected by the variances in question. We're seeking 2 variances to the bylaw, one for residential floor area and one for lot coverage. I do want to note that this property is under construction. There is a building permit that has been issued for this. It complied as of right, as it stood. However, we've undertaken 2 minor revisions to the plan that have brought forward these couple variances. The first one I'll speak to quickly is the residential floor area. We're looking for an additional 5 square meters. This is purely internal to the home. We've made modifications to the main staircase, and in fact have flipped the direction and the arrival at the top of the stairs. If you go to slide number 2 in the presentation, when you arrive at the top of the stairs, that red area now is essentially a landing. It used to be sort of open to below. That is what this residential floor area variance is for. It's for that section of infilled landing at the second floor. No additional increase in building footprint whatsoever. It matches the current issued for permit drawings in all aspects that way. The second variance with respect to lot coverage, if you can go to the next slide, please, is for that purple feature. It's a single story open air covered porch. Again, there is a building permit in place that has this structure. If you go to the next slide, you'll see the left-hand side is the existing permit plans that we're currently building from. The right-hand side is the C of A plan. So what we're looking to do really is add a piece of plywood and a rubber membrane roof sheathing to this existing arbor structure. It's a modern ACL clad portico on the back that had arbor roof joists. We're just looking to provide cover on top of that to allow the client to use it sort of year round. No enclosures, it's open air. We do note that there is a letter of, if you can just go to the next slide, I'll just quickly show the side elevation. Again, left-hand side is what is currently approved for permit. So you'll see the structure exists with a little fireplace element. And this colonnade, ACM panel colonnade that had arbor joists inside. Again, we're just looking to apply a membrane on top of that to close that over. Once that's done, it now has to be added into the coverage and it put us over the allowable maximum. We do note that there was a letter of objection. I would state that it spoke mainly to the fact that there was a worry about this being used as a balcony. Balconies are not permitted in this zone. We are not seeking a variance to include a balcony. There is no access via exterior doors to this element. So it is purely just a rear covered entertainment porch. Again, 3 letters of support on file, particularly neighbor to the left and neighbor to the rear who would be most impacted by this. I know planning staff were looking to have or spoke to having the 2 variances tied together, but ideally I see them as very separate elements, as that the RFA variance is really internal to the home. And this coverage variance has not increased the footprint. Those columns you see there are in the exact same place that they're approved on the building permit. We have not changed the size or scope of that element whatsoever. I would take any questions that are available.
Very well. Are there any? Okay, Mr. Tlowski, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Mr. Heater. That was very helpful, your explanations. Just for clarity, so I'm going to ask staff to respond to their comments, but for clarity, you have a building permit in place that you can build the house that'll look identical to what's on the drawings today. The only difference would be a 5 square meter internal modification and a roof over the approved trellis. Is that correct?
That's 100% accurate. Yeah. Internal, no changes to footprint, just to reorganize that stair and make that stair work a little bit better. Again, there were even arbor joists in place to make this a shade feature. We're just simply looking to put a rubber membrane on top that will not be visible for anybody. It's a single story structure.
Okay, thank you. Madam Chair, if I may, supplemental to staff after hearing Mr. Heater's explanation. do they still have the same view as the comments? And if they do, perhaps they could explain that for us. Thank you.
Through you, Madam Chair. Thank you for the explanation. I think that's very helpful for everyone. And thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak to this. I think with these applications that come in that are kind of midstream, it's a challenge because whenever we take a look at an application, we look at it as a whole. If we were to see this right from the beginning, would we be in support of this application? So I think that's how I initially approached this application in terms of the two variances which regulate the mass and scale of the dwelling, and taking a look at the design on the street. In this situation, you could look at it as if it's an existing dwelling, since it does have a permit and they are under construction. And in that case, as the committee, you can review and determine whether that internal change and shift is going to have any impact on the public realm. And then as well to the rear, I struggle with this because I don't want this to become something that we see ongoing where people put in a building permit and then ask for things after. That wouldn't be something we would approve to begin with, but in this situation, I can see some explanation for what he's sharing in this specific context. So I'm going to leave it to the committee to make a decision on the merits of this application.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Buckerfield. Any further items of clarification? Okay, I see none. Has anyone called in for this application, Ms. Secretary Treasurer?
There's no one at this time.
And there is no one in attendance that has raised their hand?
No, there's not.
Very well, then we'll take the matter into committee. Who would like to move a motion? Go ahead, Mr. Talowski.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, I fully agree with Ms. Buckerfield. When we have situations like this, you have to ask yourself if the entire application was in front of you at one time, would it meet the 4 tests? In this situation, I believe it does. I do not believe a 5 square meter variance to floor area has an impact to this application. And I see coverage as very different when it's dealing with a porch as a solid wall, and particularly in this instance where the structure is essentially complying and we're just adding a roof to it. I don't see that variance is causing an impact. So, and I would note as well 3 letters of support. The 1 letter of objection. I think Mr. Heater explained that appropriately, that there is no balcony being proposed here nor permitted. So, Madam Chair, I'm going to move the application be approved as applied for, finding that it meets the 4 tests of the Planning Act. I would make that approval subject to 2 conditions, which, let me see if I can find some dates. That development proceed in general accordance with the drawings submitted dated May 19th, 2022, I believe, for the site plan.
Double check that, Mr. Heather or Ms. Buckerfield.
Looks like December 14th, 2020 for the elevations. No, there's various dates on it. I'm just going to leave it as with the drawing submitted with the application. There's various dates there. And I'd also make it subject to a building permit issuing within 2 years.
Very well. Is there a discussion on this recommendation? I see none. All those in support? Okay, the application has been approved, none opposed. Thank you, Mr. Heater.
Thank you very much for your time.
Okay, if there's anyone interested in speaking to an application, please call 905-815-6095. Again, the number is 905-815-6095. Staff will be standing by to take your call and provide you with further instructions to join the video conference. We are proceeding to item CAV 110 of 2022 at 247 Dolphin Court. Again, it's CAV 110 of 2022 at 247 Dolphin Court. It's a two-story rear addition to an existing dwelling. I don't have an agent. Oh, sorry, Nicole Willett. Hello, good evening.
Hi, good evening. Sorry, I don't have an agent. It's just me.
Okay, we'll put up your drawings and feel free to take us through what you need.
Perfect. I just wanted to note and say thank you for hearing our application tonight, or seeking a variance from a minimum rear yard of 6.23 meters, what should be 10.5 meters. There will be a part of our yard that's 6.23 meters, and if you scroll down a little bit, maybe it's on page 2 of the committee of adjustment. It kind of that's probably the best drawing. So you can kind of see it's right now we already have a first floor there, so we're already kind of up, I guess, closer to the fence than we're supposed to be. What we're seeking the variance for is we want to add a second story to already that existing foundation. So I'm just here to answer any questions that the committee might have. I know staff has been, you know, very diligent in doing their due diligence and support our variance.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Willett. Are there any questions or items of clarification, Ms. Willett, at this time? Okay, I see none. Has anyone called in for this application, Ms. Secretary Treasurer?
There's no one out this time.
Okay, very well. We'll take the matter into committee. Who would like to move a motion? Go ahead, Mr. Flemington.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have reviewed the materials that have been submitted by the applicant, as well as the presentation made this evening, noting that there were no oral or written objections for this application. Also noting that the variances with regards to the style, or sorry, the irregularities of the shape of the lot. So I find that it is minor in nature and meets the 4 tests of the Planning Act. I am prepared to move the motion be approved as applied for, with the following 2 conditions: that the dwelling be built in general accordance with the submitted site plan and elevation drawings dated January 20th, 2022. And our second condition, that the approval expires 2 years from the date of the decision if a building permit has not been issued.
Perfect. Thank you, Mr. Flemington. Is there a discussion on this recommendation? See none. All those in support? Okay, the application has been approved. None opposed.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. Good night.
Okay. We're looking at application CAV 111 of at 103 Ringwood Road. Again, it's CAV 111 of 2022 at 103 Ringwood Road. If you're interested in speaking to this application, please call 905-815-6095 and we'll direct your call to join the video conference. Mr. Bruce.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Joel Tanner here with the Office of Civil Design Studio on behalf of Lindsay Bruce this evening.
Thanks.
So we here, sitting in front of you today is 103 Ringwood. I do have a presentation to walk through if you guys are ready.
Go ahead, sir.
Thank you so much. So this is a brand new single family dwelling. We are removing the existing dwelling and completely replacing it. We do realize that staff comments are in favor of our front yard variance, but are not in favor of the overall GFA variance we are seeking. So I wanted to pinpoint for the most part and talk about that GFA variance. If we can skip through to page number 4. just to see the overall front elevation. Thank you. So this is the proposed single family dwelling. Our clients have lived in town of Oakville for 15 years. This is the second dwelling that we've built with them. They currently reside in East Oakville, currently looking to move back into their older neck of the woods. Next slide, please, and I'll get into the technical details. So this is the overall main floor plan on the left-hand side of the page. Right-hand side is the upper floor plan. Currently, the allowable GFA in the area is 4,219.08 square feet. We are proposing 4,623.53. It's a deviation of 404.45 square feet. So there's a 400 square foot incremental deviation. There's two assignments here that we're looking at. The first assignment is 334 square feet, which is on the main floor. It's tied to a built-in storage shed, which is in behind the garage. It is not changing or impacting the physical massing of the front elevation of the home. So it's that in tandem with an attached proposed bathroom, which is accessed from the rear yard. So those two items in total, again, that do not impact the physical massing of the build out, is sitting at 334 square feet total. The additional increase is applied to the dwelling, which is 69.9 square feet. So with that being said, reading through staff comments, we had fantastic outcry from the neighborhood when we approached the neighbors. We have 17 signatures of support. We are here to propose a dwelling that is going to improve the neighborhood. If you drive around the surrounding streets right now, you're going to see a lot of new development, a lot of heavy massed two-story traditional designs. Our particular proposal is a two-story heavily fronted mass modern design. So in our opinion, we are meeting the four tests of the Planning Act. We feel that it's going to be a massive improvement to the streetscape. We think it's going to be improvement to the property values. And we, as much as, the overall number does look to be very significant, I want to just, go back and realize that even if we were to remove those elements and reduce the square footage, we're not changing the front massing or the overall conceptual design of the home. We're not seeking relief from the side yard setbacks. We're not seeking relief of height or of dwelling depth. It's simply related to that front yard setback, which again, town staff are quite in favor of because it does tie into the existing streetscape. And again, this GFA variance. So definitely opening the floor to any questions that town staff have, committee staff have, and if there's any any neighbors that are here to discuss the proposal at hand.
Sir Tanner, you mentioned having signatures. Did you submit those to the town staff? Because or maybe it's my mistake, I'm missing them.
Yeah, we most certainly did. So those signatures were submitted this morning to town staff. So there's 17 signatures of support, along with a key map that shows the where the different neighbor dwellings are supporting the proposed variance.
Sorry, where were they sent to? They weren't sent to COA requests?
We had confirmation, so it was sent through our office this morning, probably at prior to 9 a.m.
Do you know where
I have a physical copy here of the signatures. I'd be
no, but where did you send them to? What email?
I don't have access to Ava's email.
Okay, so if she sent it to Jasmina, she's not here. And it would have said to send it to COA request or myself. So we do not have record of those.
Okay, so yeah, we do have a couple emails that went through to town staff today to the department. So I do have confirmation of that from my colleague.
I'm sorry, when you're saying confirmation, because I just don't want to be, I did not receive them. Committee of Adjustment did not receive them. The committee members did not receive them today. So that's why when you keep using the word confirmation from the town, who confirmed they received them? Here at the town. Here at the town.
She forwarded me the email saying that it had been sent through to town staff. So,
but you're just saying you don't have access. You're saying she forwarded it on to yourself. So you should be able to see that email where she sent them. I just hope they haven't gone astray somewhere or accidentally deleted. I want to make sure we have them for our record.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I can scan them and send them through right away. I mean, I have them in front of me. I can go through the addresses of who is in support of the file.
No,
It's
no,
obviously
that's
pretty simple.
okay. I'm just,
It's fine.
when
Can you
we've
just
lost
hold up the paper?
documentation and you're saying it was sent, I just don't want to, I'm just trying to find out where it went.
Yep. Yeah, I could easily confirm with I mean, I could call her right now. I just don't know if she's available.
If you just look at your email that was forwarded to yourself, Mr. Tanner, you'll see which email it was sent to. And I think that's what the Secretary Treasurer is looking for.
Thank you,
Yeah,
Chair.
she just sent a clarification email to me. She didn't forward me the email that was sent to city staff. So
Okay.
she sent me a clarification email after confirming last night that the data had landed. Yeah.
Okay. Can you just hold up the picture, not the signatures, but you said you had a map of where those signatures came from. If you can
We
just
do,
hold it
yeah.
up for the benefit of the committee members. Okay. And your property is the one in gray, or?
Yeah, so this is the highlighted property here. So
Okay.
that's the highlighted parcel, and then those are the surrounding signatures. There's a couple that are not fitting into the map, but there's a total of 17.
Okay, very well. We don't have any record of letters of opposition or support for that matter. This would go to your benefit. Are there any questions of Mr. Tanner or items of clarification at this time? Go ahead, Ms. Murray.
Thank you, Madam Chair. More to town staff with regards to their comments and the fact that the variance number 1 on the RFA is unsupported. To clarify, it would appear that staff are most in objection to the scale and proportions and the massing. If town would like to speak further to that, that would be very helpful. Thank you.
Go ahead, Ms. Buckerfield.
Yeah, through you, Madam Chair. Thank you for that. I think his presentation is helpful to discuss what could be changed at the rear of the dwelling, but I think what's really important is what's the impact on the public realm. And as mentioned in the comments, having that 2-story entrance and having there doesn't seem to, from the public realm's perspective, it seems to overpower the street in the context. I can see why some of the neighbors may be excited for new development on that land. It looks like it's a vacant property, hasn't been maintained very well in the past little while. So I could see some excitement for something new, and it is a really unique development, but the concerns were really about the proportions on the street compared to others around it. So I think those comments still stand and still apply in the situation.
Very well. Thank you, Ms. Buckerfield. Any further items of clarification or discussion points? Mr. Talowski, go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I couldn't really see that map very well that you held up. Is the property, if you're looking at the site plan to the left, that seems to be where you've indicated where the additional massing is going, the storage behind the garage and then the washroom behind it. Do you have support from that neighbor immediately to the left?
So we have no opposition. The clients did chat with them. We don't have any signature from the neighbor directly to the left. We have signature for neighbor directly to the right. Out of all of the signatures, 9 of the signatures are coming from neighbors on the street, specifically from Ringwood. But the clients had no objection.
And the 2 elements that you're suggesting that are causing the variance, they're both single story, is that correct?
Yes, yeah, they're both single story, so they're at the rear part of the building development.
Thank you.
Mr. Flemington, go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My understanding from your presentation is that the area behind the garage, which has the washroom that is being installed, is the area that is causing the variance that is requested. So that area is not on the 2nd floor. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah, it's a combination of a storage room in behind the garage, so an attached storage shed, in addition to an attached bathroom that is accessed via the rear patio. Right. So there's a fair amount of volume within this design schematic that is a single story when you look at the rear facade.
Okay, so okay, thank you. Like I'm just looking for clarification, because in the event that you didn't have that, then you wouldn't require this variance, but that is not going to change the second floor structure at the front of the residence.
Correct. Through you, Madam Chair, to Ian, the intent architecturally here is very specifically driven towards the client's request. And at the end of the day, we do want to remain intact with the proposed front architecture, variance or no variance.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions or items of clarification? Okay, I see none. Madam Secretary Treasurer, there's no one who's raised their hand or called in for this matter.
There's no one at this time.
Okay, very well. We'll take the matter into committee. Who would like to start the ball rolling?
Madam Chair.
Sorry, I cut off for a second. Go ahead, Mr. Flemington.
I guess with regards to the application before us, and having listened to the presentation from the applicant's agent, also taking into account I know that we have not formally received the signatures of who is on side with this application. That's the unfortunate thing about having these meetings virtually, because if we were in the town, you'd be able to hand that to us and we'd be able to see it. So unfortunately, I'm taking that, that those were received. Noting that, the question as far as the one residence to the left, you don't have anything from them. I do note that the variance is not supported by the town, and that's the variance with regards to, sorry, I'm on the wrong thing here. That's with regards to the residential floor area variance. I find that I'm in support of that based on the fact that in the event that the area was to be removed, that is not going to impact the front massing of the building. So I'm in support of the application, both variances. So I'd like to move a motion in support of the application as applied for, finding that it meets the intent of the town's bylaws and official plan, and finding that it's minor in nature.
Very well.
Conditions. So I would need to add a condition with regards to the first variance. So I need some help with that. Should I just put it as?
You should not, the plans should be as submitted with the application, because those should not have changed.
Okay, so that the application be approved with the condition that with the plans submitted with the application for approval this evening is the first condition, and the second condition being our standard one, that the approval expires 2 years from the date of the decision if a building permit has not been issued for the proposed construction.
Is there a discussion on this recommendation? Mr. Tulowski and Mr. Hardcastle, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, this is a difficult one, so it probably deserves discussion. On the one hand, the applicant saying, I can build the whole front of the house without this variance, but that's not what they applied for. They applied for the variance. On the other hand, the staff report is really, I think, criticizing the design of the house, not the variance, and that the issue that staff are concerned about can be built as of right. So it's a bit of catch-22 on that, but in this context, I find myself, I have to agree with Mr. Flemington that I don't see the variance causing the impact that staff are concerned about. And in a typical scenario, if a resident had an objection to something that wasn't related to the variance, the committee would not give that a lot of weight. And I'm finding myself in that position with the staff report on this one, in that they're
We lost you, Mr. Talowski. Mr. Hardcastle, perhaps you can go ahead, and I think
concerned
Mr.
about
Talowski may have to
the design of the
reboot.
house, not the variance. And
Okay, there he is.
I'm back. So I'll
Okay.
just sum up that I will support Mr. Flemington's.
Very well. Thank you. Mr. Hardcastle?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have a slightly different take on this. Mr. Talowski has laid out, has well laid out the, or at least what we heard of what Mr. Talowski had to say, has well laid out sort of the point counterpoint on this. But ultimately, we have a proposed dwelling with an exceedance in residential floor area, which does not conform to the official plan policies as stated in the staff report. This is a small cul-de-sac with very limited redevelopment on it, and the existing built form in the area is small in scale. Even the newer buildings that are constructed are of relatively modest massing. This building will stand out and offer a significant differential in terms of scale, height, massing, architectural character, etc. I would also note, contextually, this is a pie-shaped lot with a narrow frontage, and the architectural design seeks to push the building massing up at the front of the building with no architectural elements or efforts to reduce the perceived massing, notwithstanding the objectives of the official plan. This will exacerbate the built form condition that is being proposed. So I will not be able to support this. I think that this will stand out as an abnormality in this small, relatively preserved street. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Hardcastle. Any further comments, Ms. Murray?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair, in support of Mr. Hardcastle's comments, but also taking into thoughts from Mr. Flemington and Talowski. I'm tend to side with the staff in that the front facade has a massing that would be very, very uber prominent on the street, and I'm going to agree with the town staff's comments on this one, and I won't be able to support the motion. Thank you.
All right. Any further comments or questions or items of clarification? Mr. Talowski.
Thank you, Madam Chair. If I can just possibly rebut the last few comments, I think we're confusing the ability, as of right ability, to build a larger two-story house on this cul-de-sac than what exists. And we have to ask ourselves whether the variance is causing the impact. And I don't believe it is. With a single story in the rear is not the impact that staff or my colleagues are speaking to. And so I don't believe that's the appropriate way to look at this application.
Mr. Flemington?
Along that same comment, and again, you know, I found it interesting looking at on camera the map that was provided visually to see that a number of the people who were in favor of the application live down the street who will be able to view the frontscape of this residence. And I haven't heard any negative objections from them with regards to what is being built on the frontscape of that property. So for me, you know, in addition to the comments that I said earlier, and in addition to what my colleague Mr. Tilowski has said, I just think that you know, again, I support the motion that I approved for that favor. You know, I do understand that the size of the lot, I mean, they are building the space that they are building, but I don't think the variance that is at hand is reflective of, you know, declining this motion.
Thank you, Mr. Flemington. Mr. Hardcastle?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm struggling a little bit with the principle of allocating a specific space within the building that is informing the RFA exceedance. This is not a situation like we had on Woodhaven, where it was an enclosed space that was being turned into livable area or usable area. This is a situation where there's a component of the building that's being identified as contributing, but the reality is that could be, you know, allocated or identified differently. At the end of the day, Mr. Tilowski had spoken to the idea that we have a proposal in front of us, you know, and, you know, that is demonstrating a certain size or mass. I don't want to carry my thoughts into Mr. Tilowski's, and I apologize if I was bleeding that out a little bit, but I think the reality here is that we have a design here, and the applicant is, the agent is identifying a space that is conveniently supports the idea that it's not contributing to the mass, but it is in fact part of the mass of the building, and it needs to be considered in its totality, in my view.
Okay. Mr. Tanner, do you have a rendering of the property?
I do, yeah. It's part of our PowerPoint presentation.
Can we go back to it?
And I just want to quickly note for the committee that Heather, I just sent through to COA requests as well as to your direct email those signatures, just for you guys to have on record.
Okay. Oh yes, I remember that. I with all the discussion, the rendering kind of escaped my my memory. And can we take a look at the elevations again, please? Oh, there it is. Go back. Go back. Those are the stars in your the next page, please. Oh, there. Okay,
Yeah.
so
So this is the updated package from this morning.
okay. Can we look at the elevations? There's no side or back elevation.
The elevations
Okay,
are
that's the back. Okay, that's the rear.
Yeah, so the actual elevations of the proposal are not a part of the PowerPoint presentation, but they were a part of the application. But on this particular image on the bottom right-hand side, you're seeing the covered canopy at the rear, and you're seeing a wood-sided projection on the far right-hand side of that rendering. So that's that 16 or 18 foot projection for that rear bathroom, which then links into the the built-in storage shed in behind that is a concrete hatch color.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Madam Chair, can we go to the slide that shows the area behind the garage? That one. Sorry.
Yeah.
Just go back one.
There we are.
That one. So, the area there that is in white is the area that is the covered porch.
That's correct.
So like if the area, so I guess part of what, you know, why I am suggesting what I'm suggesting is if this application was to be declined, the applicant can go back and then just remove that portion being included. And therefore that is not changing the massing on the front design of this house. It would be compliant. They would not need that variance.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess to town staff, is that correct?
Through you, Madam Chair, when an applicant complies with the zoning bylaw, we do not comment on the design of their building because they've been deemed to have a dwelling that appears to comply with what's the standard for this property. In this situation, I know that this is in decision time, so I'm not supposed to speak more freely on this, but I think it is important to look at something as a whole and consider the possibility that that increase is also the area above the two-story sections that are at the front of the house, or whether they could be stepped back or other elements that are beyond that. But you're correct. They could come back and comply, but at this point, they don't comply.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Buckerfield. Okay, we'll take the matter into committee if there are no, okay, sorry, Ms. Murray, I was out of panel. Go ahead.
Yeah, and one last point. I mean, so we have something that is seeking a variance, but again, in reference to massing, under policy 11.1.9 A, B, and H state the built form of development, including scale, height, and massing and architectural character, is to be compatible with the surrounding neighborhoods. That will be the reason for my decline at this time.
Okay. Thank you, everyone, for this healthy discussion.
Sorry,
We'll take the matter.
I just want to clarify Mr. Flemington's condition that the dwelling be built in general accordance with the drawings submitted with the application. Is that correct?
Correct. Do we have the dates? If we have the date of the
he didn't want,
can also add
he
it.
just, so it's up to you. I just want to, before it goes for a motion, I want to make sure I have the condition right. And I have it that the dwelling be built in general accordance with the drawings submitted with the application. That's what I heard. So that's, I just want to make sure that's going to be the correct condition.
Is that acceptable to you, Ms. Buckerfield, or would you prefer that we attach the date?
The date on the plan is April 19th, 2022, if that's helpful.
Very well.
For
then we'll add the date. We'll add the dates for.
Is that for site plan and elevations? Is that for site plan and elevations?
Yeah, I believe it's the same date for the whole package.
So April 19th, 2022?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so those are the conditions. The condition, the recommendation is to approve the application with those conditions. All those in support? Okay. All those opposed? Okay. The application has been approved. 2 opposed.
Thank you so much, committee. Have a great evening.
Good night. Okay. Application CAV 090 of 2022 deferred from May 31st of 2022 at 269 Westwood Drive. Again, it's application CAV 090 of 2022 at 269 Westwood Drive. If you are interested in speaking to this application, please call 905-815-6095 and staff will be standing by to take your call and provide you with further instructions. I'm just looking through here. Thought I saw something. Okay, go ahead, Mr. Barrett.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good evening, committee members. Just a moment. Window just maximized there. So yes, Graham Barrett of SGL Planning and Design, 1547 Bloor Street West, Toronto. Agent for the owners of 269 Westwood.
We lost a voice, Mr. Barrett.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, apologize. I don't know why my headphones cut out there, but as long as I'm coming through loud and clear, then this is good. So I'll start again. Graham Barrett of SGL Planning and Design, 1547 Bloor West, Toronto, agent for the owners of 269 Westwood Drive. This item was previously deferred as a variance for garage projection was missed. This has been fixed and the variance list is correct and complete on the public hearing notice. Now, I submitted a full cover letter and planning opinion on this application, which you should all have. I'm happy to go through it, but I'm sure you'd like to wrap things up. So I'll just say a few quick things and answer any questions you may have. So we're proposing 3 minor variances. If you actually have the cover letter that I submitted, there's a couple images on there that I'd love to be able to reference. If you can pull that up on the screen, that would be great. But regardless, the first
we have them in hand, so you can just direct us to which page you want us to look at.
Sure, excellent, thanks. So the first variance is for garage area, 71.1 square meters proposed, 45 square meters maximum. This is quite minor on a lot of this size. It will be set back quite a distance from the street and adjacent homes. The variance is required to provide a 3-car garage with a bit of storage space, and 3-car garages are an existing feature of this cul-de-sac. I included images on page 6 of the package I submitted with a couple other homes very close by that have 3-car garages. This isn't the dominant feature of the dwelling architecturally, as shown on the rendering on your screen. I believe it's minor in the context of the site and the property. Again, this is visible on page 4 of the package I submitted, which is the ground floor plan. The garage projection variance, this is the one that was missed the last time, 6.94 meters proposed, 1.5 meter maximum. This is somewhat technical in nature, and this is why it was missed. If you look at the package I provided on page 4, I've highlighted the ground floor plan, and you can see how the actual, what the designer thought was the front main wall of the home is not actually considered the front main wall of the home, due to the fact that it's broken up by a covered porch and a column. The actual front main wall is the glassed-in wall that's set back from the front of the home between the garage and the front entrance portion of the home. So that's where the garage projection is measured from, and unfortunately, that's what was missed the last time. Finally, there's a variance for maximum height, 10.1 meters proposed, 9 meters maximum. This is the result of the location of established grade, which is quite low due to the topography of the site. Again, in the package I provided to you, I provided elevations on 7, 8, and 9 on those 3 pages that are highlighted to show where the actual height measurements are from the ground. Unfortunately, they aren't included in the drawings that were submitted for the application. They're just in the packages I provided. But regardless, when measured from the ground, the highest point of this dwelling is around 9.2 meters, and it's lower when measured at most other points. So if you take a look at those elevations, you can really see the difference of established grade and actual grade surrounding the proposed dwelling. So I've reached out to many neighbors, and last I checked, there were still no letters of opposition. I personally hand delivered letters to every house on this street and houses the back onto the property. It's a very large, oddly shaped property, and it shares its lot line with, I believe it's 6 different homes. So I dropped letters to all of them, offering to chat if anybody had any questions or concerns. And I haven't heard from any except the adjacent neighbor on one side who just wanted the grass mowed, which the owner was more than happy to take care of. Arborist report has been done. And while some trees will require removal to construct this new dwelling, many trees on the site can and will be preserved. And I've walked the site a couple times now, and it's heavily treed. It's pretty unique. It's a large and interesting site that you wouldn't even really know is there walking down the street. So I think this proposal will make a fine addition to the neighborhood, and I believe it passes the 4 tests. And I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Very well. Thank you, Mr. Barrett. Any questions, items of clarification? Okay, I see none. Has anyone called in for this application, Ms. Secretary Treasurer?
There's no one at this time.
Okay, very well. And we'll take the matter into committee. Who would like to move a motion? Go ahead, Ms. Murray.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Having conducted my site visit and reviewed the applicant's submission as well as the town's written staff report, I note the staff report is in support of the minor variances requested, taking into consideration the comments presented by the applicant this evening. Thank you for the explanation with regards to the garage projection. It was very helpful. I'm satisfied that the minor variance application meets all 4 tests under the Planning Act, and I'm prepared to make a motion to approve the application for variance subject to the following conditions, which are that the dwelling be built in general accordance with the submitted site plan dated March 2022 and elevation drawings dated April 20th, 2022, and that the approval expires 2 years from the date of the decision if a building permit has not been issued. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, is there a discussion on this recommendation? I see none. All those 4, I don't know why I lost my train of thought. What is the word that we usually use?
Support.
Thank you. All those in support. There's a brain freeze. All those in support. None opposed. Your application has been approved.
All right, thanks very much, and have a nice
Have a good
evening.
night. Have a good night. The total brain freeze. I apologize. We're on the last item on our agenda is CAV 077 of 2022, deferred from May 17th of 2022 at 41 Glen Manor Drive. Again, it's CAV 077 of 2022 at 41 Glen Manor Drive. There's a fair bit of interest on this application. So if you are in attendance, please raise your hand when we invite you to speak. If you are watching the Oakville.ca, please call 905-815-6095 and you will be directed to join the video conference at that time. I do note that we have 5 letters of objection from a Mr. Bruce and D. Macaulay, a Mr. Peacock Ben, Mr. LeBlanc and Nicole David, and a Mr. or Miss Colleen Coxon. And we have several people who've asked to attend, Maria D. Blasio and Krista Wessel. And then we also have 8 letters of support from Mr. Richard Prewonos, Antonio Benton, Belmira Ribot, and Diane Tony Monarchis. Sorry if I apologize if I'm misspelling anyone's name. A Sophia Sang, a Petro de la Sandro, and a Mr. Roberto De Angelis. I hope I got everyone. Go ahead, Mr. Garral, the floor is yours.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and committee members. My name is Thomas Grau. I am the agent for the Roberto at this property, Roberto. This is, as you had mentioned, our second time here. The first time we deferred the application due to concerns from the neighbors and planning. We revised elements of the drawings. We only now have two variances. Our two variances are, the first one is the window well in the front. I feel that that window well is okay because it doesn't cause any obstacle in the drainage on the two sides. We didn't put any window wells in the sides for that reason because of other projects, and therefore we only put a window well in the back and the front so that this problem wouldn't occur this time. Our second point that we're asking for is for floor area, GFA. We're asking for 16.72 meters square. We don't have any other variances, no side yard setbacks, no height, no lot coverage. We're just asking for this. And I'd like to, in regards to this size, it's equivalent to 2 3/4 of a shed, of a 10 by 10 shed. So I truly don't feel that it's a lot we're asking for. I know there's concerns from the neighbors. Well, I guess we'll listen to them what they have to say. But I truly feel that asking for a shed and a quarter of a shed is not a lot. That's my presentation. I guess we'll respond to all the neighbors.
Very well, thank you. Are there any questions or items of clarification of Mr. Gurral before we take any comments from the neighbors? Okay, I see none. Madam Secretary Treasurer, has anyone raised their hand and would like to speak to this application?
Yes, and I'll just move them into the meeting.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, good evening. Go ahead.
Good evening, Madam Chair, committee members. Thank you for providing me the opportunity to explain my objection to the proposed build next to my home. I'm Ben Peacock of 45 Glen Manor Drive, the immediate next door neighbor to the proposed development. I'd like to start by emphasizing the context around some of the key points from my and many of my neighbors' comments that have been provided in advance of this and the previous COA. We're referred to a lot of the principles of Oakville town planning, including the aim to be the most livable town in Canada, affordable housing initiatives, canopy conservation programs, climate emergency, and especially and probably most pertinent to this team, the official plan and zoning bylaws, including compatibility criteria around mass, scale, architectural character and materials, setbacks, as well as impacts on adjacent properties in terms of privacy and microclimatic conditions such as shadowing. And I also want to raise that, we are a community of long-term residential homeowners. We care about preserving the environment of our street. We have modest homes on large lots and an extensive canopy of mature trees. This is a rarity, it's special, and we can't just buy it or create it overnight. So I've got 2 slides to present. They build, and so therefore it looks like more slides than that. There's basically 3 main objections to the proposed development plans, and I kind of discuss a little bit of the how. So speaking first to the bulk, you can see here we've got some red lines that show what the existing build is on the property. Everything beyond that is sort of incremental, showing the growth, and it's also, this is only 2D, so you have to imagine 3D. There's another story going on here. All the other houses on the street, 26 houses on this street, 24 of them are single-story dwellings. The additional, in addition to the growth that you can kind of see here, one of the things that's going on is clever use of open to below space inside. And so what you've got is technically the square footage of the house is growing by only, as Mr. Gurral described it, a shed and a half or whatever, but the actual mass that appears is larger than that. And so we're going from something like the allowed 40% to 42%, or actually 45% of lot area. Okay, so that's the main thing there. The original comments submitted by the planning services last time around, I think you can see are fairly scathing. Proposed mass and scale greater than what would be appropriate, does not meet the intent of the official plan, is not minor, and is not desirable. Yes, Mr. Gurral was correct in that they have thankfully paved 6 inches off the top of the house. So about 1/50th of the height has been lowered. That's nice. But in my view and that of many of my neighbors, that doesn't really change the massing problem. So that's the first slide. Second, if you can move to the next, just for illustration, there's some blue lines. Okay, so that shows the, oh, thank you. Yeah, I know we're there. Okay, that shows the front line of the proposed plan, kind of being a little bit in front of number 37, but it's a lot in front of my house, number 45. The existing front line, it's kind of an L-shaped house right now. And so all of that chunk in the bottom right corner is new, and that big yellow line that I've drawn there is a new two-story, basically a new two-story wall that I don't have to look at right. Sorry, just give me a second. Okay. All right, I kind of show that visually in a subsequent slide. So move on to the next one, please. Okay, the other issue is sort of two platforms that look down into the neighbor's yard, which appear to me as a layperson in contravention of zoning bylaws 6.4.5, which is, as I'm sure you guys are well aware, sorry, I'm losing my, my notes here. Pardon me, 1 second. Yeah, there we go. Anyway, yeah, I'll get to the raised decks a little bit more later. You can go to the next slide, please. And, you know, again, there's these two very large trees in the back that are being proposed to be removed. These, I did see from the addendum from the agent that there is a slew of little trees that are being proposed to replace these. There's 14 of them or something. That's nice. I appreciate that. But we're talking of trees that are basically just over an inch in diameter. These are hundreds of years old and 30 and 40 feet tall and contribute to the canopy and are beautiful. Okay, we can move on to the next. Unless there are any questions on anything I've said so far? No? Okay, so first time doing this, first time doing up plans like this. Okay, so when I look out my front door right now, what I see is what's in red here, and that's the closest wall of that L-shaped building. The dotted line is the farther wall of that L-shaped building. So it's not, you know, it's not intruding on my vision. And if you open up the next slide, please, next build, you know, basically everything in blue is what I see outside my front door. So it's wide open and very pleasant. And what's going to be happening is that if the plans go through tomorrow, I'm going to be looking at wall. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, here we are looking at the deck. So the back one, there's a bit of an elevation there. It's not flush with the ground, but more importantly is what we see up above that. There's a roof of some kind. Again, I don't have the plans. I only have the drawings that were put up on the website. But it sure looks like a deck. And the doors opening to that appear to be sliding glass doors. So this, you know, this differs from, I think it was Woodhaven we were looking at a bit earlier, where, you know, there wasn't the same kind of door happening. And again, I'm very kind of concerned that this is going to turn into, with very minor modifications that no one's going to see, from a planning standpoint or from a town standpoint, this turns into a back deck that is up high and overlooks my yard and several other yards. That's not the character of the neighborhood that we bought into. And finally, just next slide, please. And, you know, just to call out the point again, this is the 40-foot oak tree. Basically, it's being removed so that there can be a bit more deck space. And then behind it is the 30-foot tree that I didn't do a drawing of. So I guess basically, you know, you've seen the three main concerns I've got with the build. The owner has also been canvassing very broadly. You've received a form letter with some signatures of non-objection. Several of those were outside of the 60-meter range. So I'd say they're not particularly relevant. But you also noted that without us running around canvassing in opposition, you've received individual letters, some quite lengthy, from at least 5 individuals. And I understand at least one more or perhaps 2 more sent some in today, but maybe they didn't get in time. The owner discussed his plans with me. a couple of times to try to persuade me to accept them, as you would expect. And, you know, made noises about wanting to work with me. But in the end, what I see here are revised plans that aren't in any meaningful way different than what had been provided before. You know, I understand there might be a little bit of cantilever or something going on, but basically it looks pretty much the same. And, you know, there were sort of troubling, I don't know if it was just sort of braggadocio or what have you, but he's like, oh yeah, and I've cautioned to say this, but I've been out for, I've been out for drinks with some of the people in town staff, and, you know, they want the build because then they're going to get more tax dollars, and that's all they care about. And these kinds of comments just thrown around in a banter. I don't know if they're true or not. I don't know what the point was of bringing that up, but I can say that one of my other neighbors also had the same story told to him, and that's very concerning if it's true. Again, I would expect that my town is more than that, but it was being thrown out there. So there's a little bit of the how in this story, in this narrative. But overall, you know, I was just disappointed to see that although there was elimination of 1/50th of the height, overall, the bulk of this building didn't change. And yet the planning department provided support for a footprint that's still effectively 45% of the lot area as opposed to 40. Ultimately, the proposed house is too big for the street, runs afoul of the letter and spirit of the multiple Oakville principles that I listed up front. And I think that, you know, I'm not alone. The community here doesn't support this build, in particular the size variance. Thank you for listening.
Sorry. Who else is standing by to speak to this application? Go ahead, Mr. LeBlanc.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My comments are largely present.
I don't want to interrupt you. Mr. Gorell, I saw your hand go up. Just make note of all. Oh, okay. So just for you know, I'll hear everyone who's interested to speak to the application, and you'll have your opportunity to respond to everything, and then we'll go into discussion. Go ahead, Mr. LeBlanc.
Thank you very much. My comments were already raised in the letters and the comments attached, so I won't kind of reiterate them too much. And I think Mr. Peacock represented a lot of the same shared point of views. The proposal, the scale, the height, proportions of the dwelling are not compatible with the adjacent and existing properties in the neighborhood. This is a street majority of small bungalows. His direct neighbors on either side are you know, small single floor bungalows. And, you know, the idea, and I think the total drawings are an 8-bedroom house. I don't think you'll find any of that anywhere kind of in this neighborhood. So that's what our main objections are. Thank you.
Perfect, thank you. Anyone else? Madam Secretary, you have to help me because I don't have all
yes,
of the
there's
panels
Miss
in front of me.
Krista Wessel.
Okay, Miss Wessel, go ahead.
Oh, hello. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Thank you. My name is Krista Wessel. I live at 44 Glen Manor Drive, directly across the street from the proposed or the property in question. I realize that the owner can make some minor changes or can make some changes to the house and be in compliance with the requirements. He's chosen not to do that, so for that reason, I'm here to speak. The builder has no intention of living in the home. He will come in, tear up the neighborhood, live there for 366 days to avoid paying taxes, and move out, leaving the rest of us long-term residents to tolerate this building. As Mr. Peacock mentioned, he has misled me about his intentions, and I understand other neighbors as well. The builder has a solidly built and well-maintained modest 3-bedroom bungalow that would be affordable for a family in Oakville, and has told us he plans to turn it into a $4 million home, making it out of reach financially for just about anybody looking to get into the housing market. Allowing this bill to go through is actually going against the goals of controlling housing prices, which many levels of government have stated are an objective. Oakville wants to be known as the most livable town, and allowing this type of bill to go forward cuts completely against that grain of ambition, and allowing developers to come in, change things for their monetary gain and move out, avoiding the tax implications. The town's fought hard to protect Glen Abbey, for example, investing millions of dollars to fight against it. The town did this because it's the right thing to do. And this neighborhood is fighting this project to protect the character of our neighborhood and uphold the bylaws of the town. You mentioned there were 8 letters in support. I want to note that 2 of them appear to be outside the notice zone, that's 16 and 19 Glen Manor. So I think only 6 letters in support. There are 5 written submissions and plus 2 additional people, as I understand it myself, and 57 Glen Manor speaking at this meeting. There are no other new builds on the street. This proposed bill would substantially change the character of the street. As was mentioned on some of the earlier applications, this building will stand out and not fit in. Mr. Peacock mentioned 24 of the 26 houses are single story, and those that are 2-story were built largely on the original footprint of the house. Finally, should the committee approve the condition or approve the variance application, the approval should be conditional on the building being substantially in accordance with the plans and drawings that have been provided to the neighbors. Thank you.
Thank you for your submission. I'm just looking for some of these letters. Okay. Mr. LeBlanc, you're at 45 Glen Manor Drive, correct?
49.
Oh, you're at 49.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm at 45. This is Ben Peacock. I'm at 45.
Okay, it's just a misprint. I'm reading the number above the name versus below the name. So I just wanted the clarification. Okay, Mr. Gorel, the floor is yours. You've heard the submissions of the neighbors and their concerns. Go ahead and address them. You're still muted.
Sorry about that. You can hear me now?
Yes, go ahead.
So I'd like to thank the neighbors for their presentation. It was a great presentation. I just want to bring up the fact, and it's just an unfortunate situation for you guys, but this is kind of what building evolution is. I mean, these old bungalows are being bought up and they're being torn down and larger homes are being built. This is not a unique situation. This is happening in Etobicoke, Mississauga, Oakville, Toronto. So as much as I understand what you're saying, it's the way everything's going. And we did design within a lot of the variances, such as height. That's why we reduced it to 6 inches. The setbacks, as in front as well, the sides, the back. Massing is also based on what you had mentioned, Mr. Peacock, in regards to 45% of floor area, but it's more of the lot coverage, which we did not trigger. We're within the lot coverage that's allowed, so we wouldn't have triggered that point. We are asking for the window well for a bigger window, and the area that we're asking for is really equivalent to a shed and a half, shed and 3/4 to be exact. I mean, it could be removed, but you're still going to get a home of this size on this piece of land, and it's not to. I understand your frustration and I understand your arguments. It's unfortunate. Just that's the way it's going, and I really don't feel that we're asking for a lot, because we did reduce the size. We did at one point reduce the front yard, even where the garage is. We set it back a bit more so Mr. Peacock could have a better view. I understand you're going to look at a wall, but we did try to push it back as much as we could. And at this point, we're really only asking for 180 square feet, which I feel is not too much. Mr. LeBlanc made a reference to 8 bedrooms. I honestly don't know where you got that from. It's a 5-bedroom house. It is larger than the other houses, absolutely, but it's definitely not an 8-bedroom house. The open to above areas, that's the going trend now. People want to go into their foyer to have a 2-story space so they can have a nice chandelier in the middle, and in the back, in the great room where most families spend most of their time, whether it's Christmas or just game nights with the family, people want it to be 16, 17 feet high there because it just makes them feel comfortable and happy at home. The platforms, I'd like to make a comment about the platforms. So it's a covered deck. The windows are from the master bedroom, and it's a Juliet balcony. It by any means is never going to be a deck. If it ever does turn to deck, I encourage Mr. Peacock to call the enforcement, and an order of comply would be issued to them, and they'd have to pay fees, get a permit, and go through C of A because that isn't even permitted in Oakville. So I assure you, it isn't going to be a deck. And if you ever do see it to become a deck, I would definitely tell Mr. Peacock to call the city on whoever would have built that. And in regards to the trees, yes, that is correct. 2 of the trees are going, but there is an arborist involved, and depending on the size and the scale and the age of the tree, there's a certain amount of trees that have to be replanted. It's not 1 for 1, and that's why with this application of the trees we're moving, we do have to replant 14 trees. If the members or anyone else has any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them.
Okay. Ms. Murray has her hand up. I just wanted to make a comment. With respect to the wall, I think Mr. Grell already answered that, but they do, as of right, have the right to build a 2-story home. So that's going to happen regardless of whatever variances are before us. And then the second comment that I wanted to make is, you made a comment about speaking to town staff and something to do with going out for drinks or whatever. I'm not sure I picked all of that up, but I need to reiterate that as a committee, we are charged with full transparency. As you saw, the discussions we had to the previous application, that is where we have our discussion forum. We don't even discuss applications together beforehand. We're actually not allowed to. So I don't know what the client said or what he was speaking to, but I know that in any discussions, and Ms. Buckerfield, please feel free to chime in. And I think you should. Any discussions that the applicant may have with Ms. Buckerfield or the town staff, it is within the circulation of the notes and within the circulation of the application, and they are charged again with transparency and aiding the client in terms of what should be done and what would be acceptable and supported and versus what is not. So I don't know where these comments came from, but I need to address them because we are in a public forum, and these are comments that are on record, and they're always going to be forever on the internet because of the virtual space that we are in right now. And I'm sorry, I couldn't let that go without addressing it. Ms. Buckerfield?
Yeah, thank you. Through you, Madam Chair, thank you for bringing that up. If it hadn't come up, I was going to raise my hand. I wanted to make it extremely clear that myself, and I'm not aware of any other staff that have had any social interactions with the owner in any way. Anytime there's an application that comes into the town, once there's a deferral, we will have conversations with the applicant, because that's part of the intent of the deferral, is to have a discussion with staff to see if there's opportunities to make amendments to their application. So I met with the applicant and the architect through a virtual meeting where we discussed opportunities where they, as you can see, they reduced the height and made some changes to the second floor. So those kind of discussions did occur, but in no way am I aware of any sort of social interactions that happened between town staff and the applicant or the owner. And I'd like to make that very clear. So thank you for letting me clarify that.
Okay, thank you. Well, go ahead, Mr. Peacock. Go ahead. Yes,
Okay.
go ahead.
Yeah. So I and David on the call here don't want to accuse town staff. So I'll be absolutely clear about that. But I raise it because this is what the kind of thing that the owner was saying to us. Don't know why. And you know, as Krista said as well, she felt that the owner had misled her on various things about his intentions. And so it's not on town staff, but it was to provide some context to the kinds of discussions that are going on right now that are becoming uncomfortable. So I am glad you addressed it. And you know, again, I do want to be clear that I'm not being accusatory towards town staff. But David or Krista, do you have anything that you'd want to add on that? Because I'm not sure if I'm saying it as cleanly as you might.
No, I think that's succinct. Thanks, Ben.
Okay, Ms. Murray, go ahead. Thank you for reading.
Thank you, Madam Chair. A couple of points. I can see how there would be confusion about the Juliet balcony. It was not labeled as such, and it looks like there are doors that open up out onto the flat roof, which could facilitate a balcony at a later date. So I appreciate those comments. And as our applicant indicated at this point in time, that should a balcony show up, I'd be calling 311. To the point with regards to comments, conversations being held, or drinks being had with town staff, I appreciate Ms. Buckerfield's comments. It's great to have the leadership from our chair, and our chair I support and stand by what our chair has said. However, we do have the owner, Robert Alvarado, who is listening. Perhaps he would like to come online and address this right now and either speak to it or put it to rest. So I would invite the owner to come online and address the neighbors.
Very well. I didn't realize he was on the call with us, but by all means, before we move on to that, just as a mention, Mr. Peacock, if the balcony actually ever goes through, I'll let you know that in the past we have asked them to tear those balconies down. So if they do come in front of the Committee of Adjustment, so it's not that if it's built, if it's snuck in there, that it'll remain standing. Just as an FYI. I don't see everyone in the panel, so if your hand is up and I can't see you, just
yeah. There's actually a Ms. Colleen Coxon and also Maria Di Blasio. She's on the phone, and Ms. Coxon is in the meeting as well.
Oh, okay. I was under the impression that we had gone through all of the interested parties. That's why I allowed Mr.
There was,
Terrell to
technical difficulties. So we were behind the scenes trying to get them into the meeting. So it looks like it was a success.
Okay, very well. Go ahead, Ms. Coxon.
Thank you very much, committee, and thank you very much, Heather, for managing my technical difficulties. I'm actually up north at a cottage and I have no cell service, so I'm unable to phone in. So I appreciate the extra efforts. So I just want to echo what my fellow neighbors have already spoken to. Some of my biggest concerns are around the fact that this is a development property. So to come in and build a 5-story home on our street is, I understand what Mr. Gural is saying, that this is the way of the future, except this is a build for no one, because this is not a build for a family that has a specific need. This is someone who is taking advantage of someone trying to sell, who's older, and then just simply develop the property and then hope that it sells in the future. And I can't imagine someone who wants to spend $4.2 or $4 million to live on a street with a bunch of bungalows, because it's probably not going to be where they want to spend their $4.2 million. Right now, we do have this housing crisis, and this is just driving up prices of houses unnecessarily. I have no problem with people coming in and renovating and making and updating and making it livable and making it work within the neighborhood and work within what their family needs. This is not what the builder needs. This is what he wants so that he can maximize profit. So that's what I wanted to say. So thank you very much for the audience and the opportunity to speak.
Thank you for your submission. Ms. de Blasio, are you with us? Maria? Okay. Mr. Gural, is your...
On mute.
Oh,
so
sorry.
Maybe Maria, you might want to unmute if you're trying to speak.
I know she was having difficulty with the Zoom link, so we tried to get her on via the phone.
Well, if she comes through, I'll let her speak. Mr. Goral, is your client interested to address any of the comments that?
I just texted him. He said that he's on. Do you guys see him by any chance or no?
I don't actually on
Well,
my
he
panel,
would
so
have,
I'm not sure.
I can't put him in the meeting until they raise their hand, showing a willingness
you
to
hear
join
me?
the meeting.
Yes, Ms. Del Pasio, we hear you now. Go ahead.
Oh my gosh, thank you. I appreciate having the opportunity to speak as well. And I would like to say that I also agree with the points raised by my neighbors, Ms. Westphal, Mr. LeBlanc, Mr. Peacock, and Ms. Coxon. And, you know, it's the footprint that's proposed does not fit with the current homes on the street. I'm really concerned when I was approached by Roberto in terms of, you know, letting us know how much our properties are going up in value, where he doesn't seem to understand the people in this neighborhood are here and are more interested in the livable value and the amount, the size, the sheer volume of this house is significantly different than anyone else's on the street. It would almost be, you know, abnormal looking at that in comparison. I just find, you know, and I've got a lot of trees on my lot, and they're over 100 years old. And again, it is very nice that we're doing a 2 for 14 trade-off, but you know, none of us are going to be around to see those trees develop into what they are today. I feel that there's privacy that's being imposed on, especially, you know, with Mr. Peacock, with the neighbor directly behind, with a lot of other neighbors, obstructing the views of people that are citizens that want to live in a neighborhood like this and have been people that have been paying taxes, are part of the community, the association in our community. I just find also the comment that was made, and I myself heard the comment as well, about the conflict of interest. I'm just surprised that I noted online that was in one of the notations, and I'm actually surprised that we're in a position this evening to vote on something like this, and no one, like, I'm just wondering, has, you know, other than the owner now obviously coming, you know, if he's on and he's going to unmute himself and speak to that, but I'm just surprised that there isn't some kind of, you know, someone's looking into this to satisfy the taxpayers that are living on the street right now, to ensure that our interests are protected. So that's something that personally, I don't understand how that would happen. I just feel the house overpowers the street and will impact the people that are here and are here to stay. And, you know, Mr. Roberto Alvarez will be gone, and we'll be left with the eyesore and everything else. And that just is something that I really would think that the town would consider, right? You've got a lot of people on the street, and it just makes no sense. The significant footprint makes no sense. Now, there are alternatives. I spoke to him, the owner. There are alternatives to gaining the square footage, and that would be perhaps digging the basement or doing some other things. But I was advised that, you know, he's losing money not starting, and that would be more expensive for him. So yet again, the rest of us that have been on the street who love this type of neighborhood and the houses that are here will be left to pay that price. So I thank you for giving me, you know, my 5 minutes to speak. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Well, thank you for your submission. And it just goes to speak to how that's what makes our job difficult, that everyone has a right to submit applications. That is why the Committee of Adjustment exists. You know, there are minor variances, there are stipulations and contingencies in the bylaw that allow people to build their homes and have certain amenities. And that's why we are charged with making the decision based on all the factors, including the comments from yourselves as well as the comments from town staff. It's not whether or not town staff can entertain this, it's their duty to. So everyone has a right to make an application and discuss the merits of that application, just as you have the right to discuss how that application may affect you. So thank you for your submission. Mr. Gural, you're gonna have to instruct your client if he does want to address the committee that he has to call in.
He's in the meeting.
He's in the meeting now?
I see, yeah.
Okay, Mr. Alvarado, you can unmute yourself if you'd like to speak before we allow Mr. Gural to address any further comments by the interested neighbors.
Sure, yes. Thank you everyone for being on the call, and it's great to hear the feedback. And this is true, yes, there's been lengthy conversations with my neighbors, because obviously even before the town gave them notice, I took the time to go and meet them and let them know about the project that was going to take place. And obviously there was different conversations that took place. I think the one thing that I want to make sure that I address is I've never been in any way, shape, or form in any drinks or any setting like that with anybody from Oakville. I think that my conversations with whether it was Ben or whether it was Mr. LeBlanc was more along the lines of me saying, hey, I've never built in Oakville. The only people I've been in communication with is basically Catherine. What they're taking out of context, or maybe one person took it out of context, was I said, there's many people that I know that have built in Toronto and other areas and bigger projects, more complex projects than myself. And when they're building and they're talking to the city about these buildings, the city actually wants these builds to happen because they obviously want development to happen. It's good for the city, it's good for everybody because homeowners are getting new homes. So perhaps this is where they mistook my information. I mean, obviously you can see they're really opposed at it, so they're really prying at everything they can that's against me. In fact, my next door neighbor, his name is Roberto too, and he's supporting my build. He was the only one that I really went to the first time because I figured it wouldn't be this difficult the first time we went around to get our permit. And when I went back to get a second support, which I do have the support of him a second time with the revised drawings, he practically said to me, these people came to my door yelling at me, telling me like I had killed somebody. I felt really bad, Roberto. Now you got to understand, this is an 83-year-old man who basically, was 2 steps from crying, saying to me like, they made me feel like I killed somebody because I helped you and I supported your build. And they told him that I was building this balcony in the back and that I lied to him. I mean, it's really, really disheartening to see that they would actually go to that extent. I explained to him, I showed him the drawings. I mean, you guys have seen the elevations of the house. It literally mirrors the house across the street. The house across the street literally is 2 stories and has that, siding look. That's the same look that I'm doing. It's no different than that house. It's literally the same height. And as I kept canvassing, because obviously I wanted to get the support from everybody on the street, regardless whether they were 6 meters away or not, I felt it was my duty that everybody on that street should know what I was building and to get to know me. I am intending on living in the home. I shared the personal facts for myself that, I have a fiance and that, we're looking at having kids. I mean, some of them said, well, why do you need, 5 bedrooms? Well, I mean, like, what difference does it make? I'm going to be living in there. How do you know I don't want to have kids? How do you know I don't have family, parents, my partner's parents, and they want to live with us? I mean, sure, I can explain to you all the details of it, but the reality is I really don't have to. They say that I'm building an 8-bedroom home. I mean, I don't know who's going to live in a gym downstairs. I think Mr. LeBlanc made a comment that the gym is a bedroom. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I wouldn't put my kids or anybody living in a room that has glass. Like, I mean, like, how's that a room? How's that a bedroom? And just because of the fact that I'm going to have a nanny, I have a little nanny suite in the basement. Like, really, I'm getting persecuted for that. I mean, I don't understand. And the fact that the house after it's built, it's a $4 million house. Who knows? The market goes up and down. Doesn't really matter to me. I'm going to be living in it. And regardless whether I decide to sell the house 2 years later, 3 years later, 5 years later, 10 years later, it's nobody's business. I mean, look, at the end of the day, I'm building this home for myself. So I understand. I tried to work with Mr. Ban. I explained to him, look, even if I don't get the permit, the reality is I can still build a 3,500 square foot home, which is going to look pretty much the same way. It's just going to shave off a shed and a half from the back. I mean, I'm allowed to build a 2-story home, right? And just to close it off, I mean, the other neighbors, the 8 neighbors that supported me, I actually had probably about 12 that supported me, but 4 of the ones that decided not to sign the letter literally decided not to sign it because they said people came knocking on their door saying they shouldn't sign it and that they're not going to be supported by the neighborhood. Like, I mean, it was really bad. It was very disheartening to think that my own neighbors would go to that extent to do that. But again, I understand they're probably upset at the fact that the house is going to be larger, yes, but around us, there's more houses going on. Like Kingswood behind the street is building 4 houses. They're 4,000 square feet, 3,200 square feet, 3,000 square feet. I mean, like, the landscape is changing. And that's not my fault. I mean, I'm just a homeowner trying to build. I'm not a builder. I'm just an individual that, hey, it's okay if I want to build my house and ask for a little variance, because I mean, as far as I understand, just because it says that it's 40% built doesn't mean that I'm not allowed to ask permission to build a little bit bigger. It's not like I'm asking for 1,000 square feet. I'm simply saying 174. And really the main reason is because the upstairs, it was originally a 4-bedroom home with washrooms on everyone. But then I figured, with COVID and stuff, if I want to have my office downstairs and my wife wants to have an office upstairs, we can both share. You know what I mean? With all these things, I'm thinking in advance. So I'd like to have that extra room. So, I mean, I don't know. It was very disheartening to see some of these things or things that were taken in conversation out of context. And I apologize for it. I apologize for it. And I just wanted to end it with that. And I'd like to apologize also to the individuals who had posed my project. I'm really sorry. And I hope, I didn't offend you because I wanted to build my dream home. But that's all I'm trying to do. And I'm really sorry about that.
Okay, Mr. Alberto, thank you for taking the opportunity to address those concerns. I'm going to remind everybody before we open, because our procedure bylaw is now that I will allow Mr. Rell a last final comment, and then the Committee of Adjustment members will have opportunity to ask any questions of everyone that has spoken. I just want to remind everybody that regardless of what transpired between the members, we are not here to resolve disputes or come in between individuals. And it's not a he said, she said kind of scenario. The first part of our preamble, which we open with, is that please keep in mind that the intent of this process is to review the application that is before the committee, listen to the evidence, and then make a decision. Again, this process is not intended to be used to resolve any concerns or disputes that may exist between town and individuals or organizations or the neighbors in the vicinity. So just bearing that in mind, I appreciate everyone's submission. We do take everyone's submissions into concern and consideration, as well as the comments made by town staff, as well as what we are charged to do in terms of looking at the application and the 4 tests that we have to cross with the application. So, Mr. Rao, I'll give you a minute to address the concerns that Ms. Wessel and Ms. Cox raised, and then I'll open it up to the committee members should they have any questions or items of clarification.
Okay. Thank you. I just want to jump on the wagon as well. Like, there's no ill feelings towards the neighbors as well. I just trying to make my bread and butter by doing permit drawings. You are allowed to do homes of this size. We are asking for a little bit, and then I mean, it just unfortunately that's how sometimes it goes, and that's why we're here at committee asking for relief on that variance, so that way the homeowner can have a little bit of more space in his house.
Okay. Committee members, I don't see you all, so you're gonna have to speak up because I am toggling between two panels. Does anyone have any questions of any of the neighbors or the agent and applicant at this time? If you do, please raise your hand or speak up. Okay, I see none. Then we'll take the matter into committee. Who would like to start the ball rolling in terms of our discussion? I don't see you all, so you're gonna have to speak up. Go ahead, Mr. Talowski.
Madam Chair. I see some similarities to this application and the previous one tonight, but I think there's been a lot of emotion tonight, and I think we need to bring it back to what the committee is charged with doing. It's definitely not having drinks with applicants. I'm sure I can speak for my committee members that none of us have done that, but we have 4 tests to apply. Is it minor? Does it meet the intent of the bylaw? Does it meet the intent of the official plan? And is it desirable? I think it's the 4th test where the applicant and the neighbors are at odds. The intent of an applicant, what an applicant may or may not have said is not a 5th test. It's unfortunate that the applicant and the neighbors are at odds here in what seems to be an emotional way, but that is not something that's in front of the committee, nor are the trees. The town has a separate tree bylaw that's not within the power of this committee. The applicant has the right to apply to take those trees down, and the town will deal with it within the context of that bylaw. But lots of discussion on the deck. I assure the applicant he will not get a permit with the drawings the way they are now without that actually showing as a Juliet balcony, as they'll be back for another variance. That deck won't be permitted. I guess what I see, Madam Chair, is similarly, the variance that the committee is being asked to rule on is not a 2-story house on a street of 1-story houses. It's whether an additional 180 square feet on that house meets the 4 tests of the Planning Act or not. The applicant has the right to build a 2-story house. Everybody on that street has the right to build a larger 2-story house. I really didn't hear, I note there was comment made on the window well in one of the submissions, but nobody raised that tonight. I don't believe that that variance is the key item here tonight. And I don't believe that there's an impact from that variance. It's really whether an additional 180 feet on a permitted 2-story house meets the test and whether it has an impact. It's not a large 2-story house beside a smaller bungalow. That's not the test that the committee is supposed to be looking at. What I view it as, what is the applicant allowed to build as of right? What are they asking for? And is that variance that's being requested causing the impact? And while I appreciate the neighbors don't want to see a larger house, the concerns they're raising, in my view, Madam Chair, are not caused by an additional 9 by 10 space on each floor. So, Madam Chair, I am going to support the staff on this application. I believe that this application
Mr. Talowski, we lost you.
is
I believe you cut off at, I believe that this application meets, and then we've lost you.
I think I'm back.
Okay, you cut off at this application meets.
Madam Chair, I'm going to turn my camera off as well. I've been doing that off and on all night because my connection is terrible tonight. And Chair, I do believe that this application meets the test of the Planning Act. I support the staff's recommendation, and I'm going to move its approval subject to the dwelling being built in general accordance with the submitted site plan and elevations dated May 30th, 2022, and that approval expires if a permit doesn't issue within 2 years.
Very well, thank you, Mr. Talowski. Is there a discussion on this recommendation? Okay, I see none. All those in support? Okay, the application has been approved, none opposed. Thank you, everyone, and have a good evening. The next item on our agenda is confirmation of the minutes for June 14th. Ms. Murray, thank you. And a motion for adjournment. Mr. Hardcastle, thank you. And we are adjourned at 9:21 p.m.